What's up, cooks? Welcome to the Car Kitchen. I am the Car Chef, and today we are looking at the brand new set, Celestial Guardians. That's right, the new trailer just dropped. We're not going to watch the trailer. I'm sure you've seen it already, and if you haven't, you can easily find it. What we're going to do is we're going to go through each card and just talk about them a little bit, and then later on in different videos, I'm going to focus on specific cards that I think will change the meta. I'll talk about those cards obviously today as well, but first what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the cards that we know for sure are in the set. So right now I have confirmed for sure pretty much 100% a minimum of 55 cards that we know of, and the reason for this is because all of the cards that we got to see, as well as the cards that we know about for the promo cards such as Rayquaza that we're looking at right now, as well as cards that we didn't get to see but we know are coming because we saw their evolutions or we saw their names on supporter cards. So I'll just go through the list really quickly of all 55 cards. Solgaleo EX, Lunala EX, Cosmog, and Cosmoem, I think is how you say it. They both evolve into both Solgaleo and Lunala. It's a split evolution, so we know we're going to get them. We didn't get to see them. We got to see two different Rowlets and a Dartrix, and so that obviously means we're going to get at least one Decidueye. We got to see two Littens, which means we're going to get at least a Torracat and an Incineroar. We saw two Popplios, which means we're going to get at least one Brionne and one Primarina. We saw a Alolan Meowth, which means we're definitely going to get a Alolan Persian. We saw two different Oricorios. We saw an Alolan Raichu EX, which means we're probably going to get a new Pikachu. We saw an Alolan Marowak, which means we're probably going to get a new Cubone, because Alolan Raichu and Alolan Marowak actually evolved from the original versions, Pikachu and Cubone, unlike Alolan Persian, who evolves from Alolan Meowth. Alolan Raichu and Alolan Marowak evolved from the original Pikachu and the original Cubone. We got to see Alolan Vulpix, which means we're going to get an Alolan Ninetales. In the paper TCG and in the video games, it's actually two types. It's Ice and Fairy. We have not seen Fairy type yet in the game, so I wonder if they'll finally introduce Fairy types or not. And then we obviously got to see Rayquaza EX, two different versions of it, two variants. It's the same card, but just two variants. Then we got a supporter card Lana, which we got to see the name of Araquanid and Araquanid on Alana's supporter card, which means we're going to get a Dewpider. Kiawe, another supporter. We got to see Alolan Marowak's name on there. We already got to see the card, but we also got to see Turtonator's name on there, which means we're going to get a Turtonator card. Then a Sorola, we got to see Palisand and Mimikyu because we got to see Palisand's name. That means we're going to get a Sandygast. Now, whether that's a ground type or fighting type or a psychic type, only time will tell. I'm assuming it's going to be Psychic because I think Mimikyu will be Psychic as well. And you'll probably want to play them both in the same deck. But then we got to see the supporter card Mallow, which works with Shiinotic and Tasserina, which means we're going to get a new Morlul and a Steen and a Boonsuite. And then Sophocles, another supporter card, a ton of supporter cards in this. We got to see the name Alolan Golem, which means we're going to get an Alolan Graveler and an Alolan Geodude. Those are, by the way, the Alolan versions of Golem and his line are Electric and Alola. And then we got to see Vikavolt name, which means we're going to get a Grubbin and a Charjabug, and then a Togedemaru. I don't know why the Alolan names are so hard. Like, what the hell? But that's basically like the Pikachu variant of that region. Basically, every region that comes out, a new region, they always have like a knockoff Pikachu. That's Togedemaru. And then we got Ilima and then Lily. Those are two new supporters. They're basically universal, or they work not with specific Pokemon names, but specific types of Pokemon. And then we got two new item cards, a Rotom Dex, and yes, Rare Candy. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through each card individually, talk about them a bit, and think kind of given my take on how they will affect the game, how good they will be in the meta and stuff like that. And then I'm going to do a whole separate video on just rare candy, because I think it's going to be a huge impact. At least the way we play stage 2s. That doesn't mean necessarily that stage 2s will become like super duper more powerful than they already are. It still might be very well that yes, those decks get better, but not better enough that they're still better than the four basic Pokemon in one deck, EX type of decks, right? So we're going to start with Rayquaza here. As you can see, we got this one, and then we got this one as well, which has the promo. This is the one from the promo. I think they're both promos, to be honest. You can actually go to Pokemon.com and you can they tell you that you actually get Rayquaza EX in a promo battle, the free battles, I believe. And what this card does, okay, 140 HP. It's a colorless, by the way. It's not a dragon. It has been dragon in the past, I'm pretty sure, but it is colorless. And it only has 140 HP, which is kind of shocking because it is a legendary, and you would think it would be somewhere like in that Mewtwo range of 150. And it also a 2 retreat cost and takes 4 energy. Yes, it's colorless, so you can ramp onto it with things like Manaphy or Dialga. However, it's still cost 4 and 2 to retreat with only 140 HP. So I don't like the HP. So that's the only thing I don't like about this card, but I do love the attack. So the attack reads, Draco Meteor. One of your opponent's Pokemon is chosen at random 4 times. For each time a Pokemon was chosen, do 40 damage to it. So it's literally the exact same attack as Dragonite, except it's on a basic and it doesn't take any specific energy. So it's actually really good. Like, it's already in a sense kind of better than Dragonite, but also kind of not, because it has 20 less HP, which means it won't be able to take as a shot sometimes like Dragonite could, and Dragonite actually does more damage. So I do think this will be played. Will it be played in a meta deck? I don't know. My first impressions is people are going to want to play this with Dragonite, and you can absolutely do that. I actually think you want to play this with like Wugtrio, because Wugtrio already wants to play Manaphy. So being able to get both a Wugtrio and a Rayquaza set up at the same time to do a ton of spread damage is possibly where I would go with this. But only time will tell. I don't think it's going to be meta. Dragonite's never been meta, and like I said, with only 140 HP, I don't see this really being extremely viable. But we'll have to see. So we'll move on. What I want to do first, before we get into the rest of the Pokemon, I actually want to go through all the supporters and the trainer cards, because I think it's important that we talk about those so that when we talk about the other cards, we can talk about how they may affect the game, knowing what the new supporters do and already knowing what the old supporters do. So the first one is Lily. So this one's really cool because this one is also a stage 2 Pokemon support. So we, as I said, we already got Rare Candy, and I'll get into that a little bit later in case you don't already know. In case you do already know, it helps stage 2s evolve quicker by skipping stage 1. Now this card, Lily, it says heal 60 damage from one of your stage 2 Pokemon. So this is going to be very strong. I don't know if it'll be played at 2 in every stage 2 deck, and I don't even know if it'll be a staple in every stage 2 deck, but it definitely helps those decks out, being able to heal a lot of damage. But again, and I'm going to talk about Rare Candy and stage 2 decks going forward in a separate video, so I'm going to get more in depth, but this card is really good. It's actually our biggest healer card that we have in the game right now. The one previous to this was Erica, but only worked with grass types, and then Irida did 40, but only works with Pokemon with water energy attached to it. It can heal 40 for each Pokemon that has a water attached to it, but in most cases, you're only ever really healing one Pokemon. And then, of course, we have Pokemon Center Lady, which works with everybody, but only does 30, as well as Potion, which is an item instead of a supporter. So this is a supporter, and it does 60 for a stage 2. And why this is really good is not just because it heals so much, but it heals so much on a Pokemon that already has so much HP. Stage 2 Pokemon, especially the EX Pokemon, are already kind of known for having the largest HP count, which means like something like a Charizard. I'm probably going to reference Charizard the most when talking about stage 2 decks going forward. But let's say he has 180, he has 200 with a cape. If he takes a couple some damage before you get to do your first attack, which could kind of suck sometimes, which means you're starting to get put into range to be knocked out. you can actually heal 60 damage of it and just kind of like nullify any damage your opponent did to your Charizard, right? And that goes for any stage 2, so this is pretty crazy. And then when you think of Venusaur, like for all we know, Venusaur might actually just become meta now, because not only can you evolve it faster with Rare Candy, but you could actually keep it online for even longer because you can play this instead of Erica. Erica already healed 50. Venusaur heals 30 from itself. You include capes and potions and Pokemon Center ladies, maybe. And then this card, it's going to be on the field for a super duper long time and basically never get knocked out. So it's going to be pretty crazy. What I'll do is we'll look at Rare Candy just in case those don't know. It says choose one of your basic Pokemon in play. If you have a stage 2 card in your hand that evolves from that Pokemon, put that card onto the basic Pokemon to evolve it, skip in stage 1. You can't use this card during the first turn or on a basic Pokemon that was put into play this turn. So again, you just get to skip stage 1 altogether. And then not only that, but if you play this and Lily in the same deck, then you have a ton of new support for stage 2s going forward in the game. And then we have this new card called Ilima. Ilima says put one of your colorless Pokemon that has damage on it into your hand. So this is pretty cool. It's a new bounce card. We already have Button Expeditioner for Mew EX specifically, and Mew, I believe, as well. And then we have Koga for Weezing and Muck. But now we have something that's a little more universal. It's not Pokemon specific. It's a Pokemon type specific. So now this can work with a ton of Pokemon. It can work with things like Snorlax, which is really good because Snorlax has a ton of HP and can also put a ton of damage with Barry in the early game. And then if it takes too much damage and you don't want it to get knocked out, you could just bounce it back and then bring something else in, maybe something like a Staraptor, who is also a colorless and can also attack for 1 energy for 130 if you have your second Barry. So this would be pretty cool, and it could also work with a bunch of other cards. I think you're going to want to use it on colorless Pokemon that don't require a lot of energy, which is why I mentioned Snorlax and Staraptor, because they have minimal energy requirement to attack when you consider you can attack for 2 energy less with a Barry in the turn previous to that. So that's pretty interesting. This might also work very well with things like Kangaskhan. Being able to have a Kangaskhan that has 3 retreat in the front and have a rocky helmet on it so it could tank like crazy and also get a bunch of damage in 30 to 60. Yes, sometimes it will be 0, but it could be 30 to 60 damage, including the rocky helmet that it has on it, will be very good to just be able to bounce it out of the active when you're ready to bring something else in. So this is going to be very good. This also might work very well with Arceus, or I would think more the baby Arceus instead of Arceus EX, because you could think about this, right? If you have a Crobat Darkrai deck and you decide to put the Arceus, the baby version, the non-EX version in the deck as a tank, you keep it in the front. You let it absorb damage because it has 120 HP. You can put a cape or a rocky helmet on it, whatever you choose to. Then you can put all of your energies on your Darkrai, get in all that passive damage, and then once you're ready, if your Pokemon's not knocked out, you can just use Ilima, bounce it back, because now you have a Crobat on hand and a fully set up Darkrai, and then you bring the Darkrai in, and then you just finish up the game if you can, right? So it would be very strong to do that, and very possible to do that as well. So I wonder how this is going to be used. I'm definitely going to be making a bounce deck 100% with some colorless Pokemon. And I also don't know, by the way, if you bounce back a stage 1 or a stage 2, if you'll get all of its previous evolutions in your hand as well. I believe with Weezing and Koga you do, but I also don't know how it works if you have a tool card attached to you. So only time will tell, and I'm sure other people already know the answer to this, but I'm not 100% sure. The next card is Lana, and I'm more interested about this card than I am any other card, and it reads, you can use this card only if you have why can't I say this guy's name? Araquanid in play. So Araquanid is a water-like spider, and it's a stage 1. And if you have that card in play, you can play this card. And it says switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot. So it's basically a Cyrus, but you don't need to have any damage. And you get to choose the Pokemon that comes out. So it's a lot more like Cyrus than it is Sabrina, but is a Gust card like the two of them. And because you get to choose, this can actually be extremely broken with another Pokemon that we'll get into later. The Solgaleo. Why can't I see the names? I don't know. I'm tired, I guess. But it could potentially be very broken with certain combos. Yes, combo decks aren't always the greatest because you need the combo pieces, but being able to have a Gust card that you get to choose without having to have any real requirement for it. Like, yes, you have to have Arachnid, but for all we know, Arachnid might be very good as well. I'm assuming this card is going to feel, the Arachnid is going to feel like a filler card, because if it's any good at all, I would feel like it's kind of broken. And I think there actually is some broken combos that we can get out of this with Solgaleo EX because of its ability. But anyways, we'll get into that later. So let's go on to the next one. This is Kiawe. Choose one of your Alolan, Marowak, or Turtonators in play. Take 2 fire energy from your energy zone, attach it to that Pokemon, and your turn ends. So very similar to Giratina, right? Your turn ends. And this is kind of sucks in a way, but it's also necessary. Because think of it this way. If you had a deck, right, where you played Giratina and let's say Turtonator or Marowak EX, or Alolan Marowak, sorry, you could ramp 2 fire energy and a psychic energy all in the same turn, while manually attaching your energy to something else. Which means instead of building 2 Pokemon at a time like decks already do because of Giratina and Magnezone and Manaphy being able to ramp to multiple Pokemon, you would be able to do 3 at a time. And that would be absolutely not good. That would be very not good. Being able to have, again, your Giratina set up by like turn 3, your Alolan Marowak already set up, and then another Pokemon set up as well by manually attaching to them would kind of make the game way more power crept than it kind of is already getting to. So I do think it is necessary. And you know what? You can use this at the end of your turn. And not only that, but you can use this in a deck that doesn't play fire energy, because the Alolan Marowak, which we'll see later, only requires 2 fire energy and 1 colorless. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. And we haven't seen the Turtonator yet, but I would love to see what it does. I have a feeling that it might kind of have a similar effect to like a Druddigon, because if it's like a spiky armor. But who knows? That's just a theory. There's no confirmation there. Acerola. Choose one of your Palossand or Mimikyu that has damage on it. Move 40 of its damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So this is super interesting, right? Because it's basically a free 40 damage to your opponent that you get. You just get to do it. Yes, you have to play a supporter, but who cares if you're doing 40 damage? Like, that's a lot. Like, that is a lot. Like, if you just play this over red in any deck where your opponent hasn't one-shotted you, you're going to one-shot whatever you attacked into you. Like, it's kind of crazy. What's the best example? Like, honestly, this might... Although, never mind. Because you have to play Palossand or Mimikyu, right? We don't know what they're going to be, right? So they might not be good at all, but if they pair at all with any good meta card, it might be very strong. Because again, if you take some damage and you're able to just move that damage and then bring in an EX Pokemon that has all the energy on it to get 40 extra damage, like, you can knock out a ton of Pokemon with a ton of HP. So that'll be very interesting. But again, we don't know what the cards are going to be, so we won't know until we get to see the rest, right? So Sophocles, another trainer card. During your turn, attacks used by your Alolan Golem, your Vikavolt, or your Togedemaru do 30 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So it's basically Blaine, but for electric Pokemon that Sophocles is the trainer of, right? So it's a trainer card with his specific Pokemon from, I guess, the anime, and they get to do 30 extra damage just like Blaine. Blaine does for Ninetales and Rapidash, right? So we don't know how crazy this card might be, because for all we know, these attacks might have very high damage already, or enough damage to get them into range to knock out and one-shot a lot of Pokemon. So we'll get to see. I don't know how they may work, but I'm assuming the Alolan Golem might have a pretty high attack. And then Mallow, heal all damage from one of your Shiinotic or Tasserina. If you do, discard all energy from that Pokemon. So this card is very similar to Max Potion from the paper TCG. Max Potion is actually an item card that does the same thing, but it does it for any Pokemon, which in this card game would be absolutely broken. But this is going to work with only 2 specific Pokemon, and it will also be a supporter, and it will discard all their energy. So that is very specific, and I'm kind of okay with this. I was hoping to get a card like this in the game at some point, but I'm glad that it's just 2 Pokemon specific, because I think it would be way too broken if not. They are going to be grass-type Pokemon, like 100%. First of all, we already have a Shiinotic, and no, we don't have a Tasserini, but we already do have a Shiinotic in the game, which means we can use it with the original Shiinotic and the new one that we're going to get in this set as well. So it'll be interesting to see what the new one does and how well it will work with the old one. And now we're getting into the good stuff. Now we're getting into the Pokemon. So Solgaleo EX. 180 HP on a stage 2, pretty standard. 2 retreat cost, which is kind of, honestly, I think low for this Pokemon, if I'm being completely honest with you. It has 120 for 2 metal, and it says this attack does 10 damage to itself, which I don't think is enough. And then it has the ability, Ryzen Road. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is on your bench, you may switch it with your active Pokemon. This is going to be so good, in my opinion. 120, now 130, in my opinion, at least in the current meta, is really that breakpoint that you're looking for. Because with a Darkrai or a turn of Rocky Helmet or a Red, you're in range of knocking out a lot of Pokemon in the game. 120 doesn't allow you to do that. But now that we have Rare Candy, this only requires 2 energy, which means by your second turn, you can evolve it and have your second energy on it to do 120 and basically bring into the front for free, is going to be extremely game-changing, in my opinion. I definitely think this might be a meta deck. Now, whether it's the top one or the second, third, or top 5 or top 10, I do think this is going to be consistently a great deck in the new meta going forward. I also think this is going to cause very, in my opinion, broken combos with things like Victory Bell and the Araquanid. Okay, so the Araquanid, in case you don't remember, with Lana, as long as Araquanid is on the field, you can choose what Pokemon you bring out. Okay, so you could bring in their Pokemon and just whatever Pokemon you want and hit it for 120. It doesn't have to be an EX Pokemon. It could be whatever Pokemon you want and get that free knockout. And then you can do it again on the next turn. And then you can also play a Sabrina on the following, or a Cyrus, or whatever you may need to play to just get out as many Pokemon as you possibly need while you sit behind something, build this up, and then bring it out. But I think this is really going to be broken with Victory Bell. So yes, this 2 stage 2s, but we do now have a Rare Candy. You could actually have Victory Bell in the front to begin with. Bring out a basic Pokemon, bring Solgaleo out, knock the Pokemon you brought in out. The next turn, you could retreat with a Leaf, bring your Victory Bell back in, do it again, because then this ability brings him back in for free. So you can just do that multiple times. If you get 2 Leafs in your hand or an X speed and you already have energy on it, you're just going to be able to create a loop with things like Victory Bell that is going to be very broken, or it's going to feel very broken, because you can just keep bringing out whatever Pokemon you want whenever you want. Now, Victory Bell only works with basics, but a lot of the meta revolves around basics, right? So there is a chance that you just completely sweep games by creating this combo going forward. And then we have Lunala. This is decent, but I don't think it's going to be game-changing at all. I don't think it's going to be in any meta deck, to be completely honest. It does sound a lot stronger than I think it actually is, though. Stage 2, 180 HP, 1 retreat, which is very cheap, which I think is okay, because I don't think it's that strong of a Pokemon. And then it has just 100 damage for 3 energy. And then it says, once during your turn, this is an ability. You may move all psychic energy from one of your bench Pokemon, one of your bench psychic Pokemon to your active Pokemon. So obviously right away, it's going to pretty much have to be played with Giratina, right? So the question is the Giratina Mewtwo deck, right, that we're already playing, has kind of fallen off a bit, but we're already playing it. Does this get put into that deck as well, or is it not worth it, right? Because you could basically load up your Mewtwo while manually load up your Mewtwo while automatically loading up your Giratina. Discard 2 energy from your Mewtwo and then move them all with Lunala, right? So that is something. Or you can just put all the energy on Giratina and then move them all to Mewtwo, right? So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it works. And I haven't thought of a cook for this yet, but I don't think it's going to be all that good. I think the psychic decks that we think this would be good in probably are already just better without it, to be completely honest. And then we have Rowlet. We got this one here. We actually have 2 different versions, and this one, they both have 60 HP, and they both have a retreat cost of 1. This one just has a standard 1 leaf energy for 20 damage. And then this one here, it says Lunala pack, so I'm assuming one is going to be in each different pack. It says Skill Dive. This attack does 10 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. So I actually think this is kind of a foreshadow to what Decidueye will do. Decidueye has a version of the card in the paper TCG when the Sun and Moon set came out, which was the Alolan region, that it was a Pokemon GX instead of an EX, and it basically had the same ability that the Greninja that we have in Pokemon Pocket now had on the Decidueye. So I actually think Decidueye that we're getting, whether it's an EX or not, will have a similar effect to Greninja. Whether it's the exact same one or not, I'm not sure, but I do think it's going to have a sniping ability. Decidueye is also very inspired when it was created by Robin Hood. It has like a green hood over its head, and it shoots like a bow and arrow, right? So it does have the whole sniping kind of concept behind it already. So I do think Decidueye will have a sniping ability in some way, shape, or form because of the paper TCG cards that we've seen before, and because of this Rowlet that we're getting in Pokemon Pocket. And then this is the Dratix. I guess it's just whatever. It's just a photo. And then we have Litten. We also have 2 versions of this. This one is 60 HP, 1 energy retreat, and 1 energy requirement to do scratch for 20 damage. And then we have this one, Heat Tackle. Does 30 and then does 10 damage to itself. So this is probably going to be the one that's used, even though it does damage to itself. It's only 10, which, yes, will put it in range of things like Skarmory and Carnivine, so maybe we don't. But this also will knock out things like Magikarp if Magikarp continues to be something important thing in the meta. And then we have Torracat. We don't know what it does. And then we have this Poplio. 60 HP as well. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. It's Sing. Yes, that makes sense. And then we have this one that just does Water Gun, right? So pretty standard and not a huge change. I'm assuming we're going to get a Primarina that has to do with sleep as well. Now, I wonder if we're going to get, I think we're going to get 2 of each. I'm not 100% sure, because why would we have 1 Lunala pack and 1 non-Lunala pack? I don't know. But yeah. And then we have Alolan Meowth, standard. Now, we don't know if the Alolan Persian will be an EX or not. It would be pretty cool if we did get an EX, but I'm not sure if we will. And I'm just kind of interested, but it is weak to grass and not fighting, which makes me believe it is going to be an EX, because Darkrai and who is it? Sneasel or Weavile are both weak to grass, and they are EX Dark EX Pokemon, which makes me think that it might be kind of strong and needs that balance of being weak to something like a Meowscarada. So I'm really hoping that it is an EX if it's weak to grass. And then we have Oricorio. We have two versions of this card as well. Oricorio usually, in my experience with the game, has a ton of different versions. It has like a nice type, I think, a fire type, I'm pretty sure. These are both psychic, and they're both different packs, and one has Dazzle Dance, which says your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. And then we have this one that says if any of your Pokemon were knocked out by damage from an attack during your opponent's last turn, this attack does 60 more damage. So a total of 80 damage. Very similar to Marshadow for 1 less energy and 20 less damage. I don't know if this is going to be good. Marshadow's really good. This one, I think, will have to be played in a deck that's a single price deck. Because if the Pokemon you already got knocked out was a EX Pokemon, you're never going to bring this in. Because this will just get knocked out as well. Which means you'll just lose 3 prize points. 2 from the EX that was knocked out. And then this guy who only has 70 damage. Or HP, sorry. So I do think this is pretty interesting. 80 damage for 1 energy. But I'm not sure if it'll be super relevant. Maybe as like an endgame sweeper where like you need to, you have enough damage on a Pokemon, and then you can just put your 1 energy on this guy and then knock out whoever's still there. And then we have a Alolan Vulpix. Call forth cold. Take a water energy from your energy zone and attach it to this Pokemon. So pretty much the same thing that one of the executes does for Executor. I think it's the one we got from Mythical Island. Pretty much does the same thing. And then I'm assuming this means that Alolan Ninetales will probably have like a 3 energy requirement. You get 1 on Vulpix, a second because it's attack, and then the 3rd on curve for Alolan Vulpix. Now, again, I don't know if it's going to be an EX or not. It would be pretty cool if it was, but I'm not sure. And then we got Alolan Raichu, and this is the rainbow art. And this is, why do I have 2 here? Give me a sec. This is the rainbow art, and then this is the original. And this is actually pretty cool. So for those that don't know, Alolan Raichu EX is both a electric type and a psychic type. In this game, they decided to make it an electric type, which is pretty cool. But they also gave it the move Psychic, which of course Alakazam has, Executor from Mythical Island has, and also has in a similar attack from Gallade, and Jinx also has Psychic as well. So this attack for 3 colorless, which is super cool. This attack does 30 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So 60 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30 plus 30, depending on how many energy your opponent's active Pokemon has on them. This is really strong. I think this is the exact verbiage for Alakazam as well, but this is on a stage 1. That is an EX, which means if it has 3, it's doing 150, which is huge. Like, that's pretty crazy. And it's colorless. 3 colorless, which means this can be played in any deck you want. You can play this in a deck with Manaphy and Ramp Energy on it. You can play this in a deck with Dialga and Ramp Energy on it. You can manually attach to this, attack with it, knock something out, retreat it, then use Lieutenant Surge onto a actual Raichu from Genetic Apex and do 140 with that. If the attack, this attack doesn't do enough damage towards the next Pokemon that's coming in because it doesn't have enough energy. So that's pretty cool because you can play this and Raichu in the same deck because they both evolve from the same Pikachu. So that will be pretty cool. And this can actually be played in a Magnezone deck that doesn't play electric type energies, even though they're both electric type, because they're both basically colorless Pokemon, right? But they get a weakness towards water, which is really cool. And then not only can this card be played in pretty much any deck, but so can this one. And this is a Alolan Marowak. And not an EX Pokemon, 110 HP on a stage 1, which isn't terrible, but wasn't great. Flip, it says Burn and Boomerang, 70x. So 3 energy, 2 of them fire specific and 1 colorless. Flip 2 coins. This attack does 70 damage for each heads. If at least one of those heads, one of them is heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned. So if you get 2, if you get 1, it's 70 damage, plus the 20 you'll get from burn. If you get 2, that's 140, plus burn, which is 160 damage. So this is actually super strong. But for those who've actually played and were around from the beginning, Marowak EX from Genetic Apex has the exact same attack, except it does 80 and doesn't burn, which means it does 160, and no one plays that card because the coin flips on that are super bad. Now, because this is a single prize, it might be worth playing, especially since you can play Kiawe, which we read the card before. It says take 2 fire energy from your energy zone and attach them to a Alolan Marowak, which means this card could just be played in any deck you want with Kiawe, not play fire energy at all, and then use Kiawe to ramp onto Marowak, and it's basically like a free card. It's like a free Pokemon completely filled up basically, because then once you're ready to bring it in, it just needs 1 more energy and you're good to go. So this could be played in a ton of decks. This could be played in whatever deck you want, as long as you put Kiawe in there. Now, is it worth doing that? I don't know. Time will tell. But if you think about it, right, like you play this in a Magnezone deck or a Giratina deck, or I would say Magnezone more because Kiawe ends the turn, so you probably don't want to play it alongside Giratina because you can't do both in the same turn. But you ramp for free on your Marowak, Magnezone, manually attached to something else like your Alolan Raichu, and then you use Kiawe on your Marowak, and you have 3 Pokemon ready to go. We're all good. We're all ready to go. Like, that's freaking crazy, man. Like, I think this with Magnezone and possibly something else is going to be really strong. But we'll see. I mean, you never know, because this attack can be very bad, but if it's basically a Pokemon that gets ramped up for free, like, why not? Like, just take the risk, right? Why not? And then we have Kiawe, which, of course, we already read. But, yes, take 2 energy from your energy zone, attach it to your Pokemon, which is Alolan Marowak. So that is it for the review of all these cards. What I'm going to do next is stay tuned for the next video coming out, because I'm probably going to do one specifically on Rare Candy, because I do think it's going to be the card that's most important out of this set. And then I think I'm also going to talk maybe another video about Alolan Marowak a little bit more, and Raichu EX, because they are pretty much 2 cards that can be splashed into any deck, because they could either one has all colorless or the other one can be ramped for free with Kiawe. So I do think those are the most interesting cards. I think Solgaleo or Solgeo, I forget how to pronounce this. I think this card's probably going to be the best card in the entire set. And I don't think Rayquaza and Lunala will be as strong as we would like them to be. But anyways, with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and share. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Join my Discord and my Twitter. And as always, keep cooking.